What is this? Take 4, here we go. I just want to say real fast, I've really enjoyed this class. I feel badly that I wasn't able to fully engage as much as I might have under different circumstances, but I still got a lot out of this, and I still really enjoyed the communication and interaction that I had in this class. But without further ado, let's get into it. So what I've decided to do here is create D&D character sheets. I decided that instead of just giving what I have, I should provide some sort of context to what I've done here. Just because there's a lot of inside jokes that would make absolutely no sense to someone who doesn't know the game or doesn't know the system. So I decided that I'll walk you through some of these. Unfortunately, jokes aren't funny when they're explained, but I need a grade, so I'm not going to just let you muddle through and not understand what's going on. We have St. Jerome. Let's start off with just reading what I've created here, reading the stat sheet. We've got name, and then we go to alignment, which is, the idea is this is their moral alignment, this is their guiding alignment. They don't always do lawful neutral acts, they're not always lawful, they're not always neutral, but for the most part that is their guiding principle. There's a scale from lawful to chaotic, and then from good to evil, with neutral in the middle of both those spectrums. So we have lawful neutral, we have type, he's a human with the class of adept. Adept is an NPC class. It means that they're not, NPC is a non-player character, so this is something that the person who's describing the world would play. They're not cool enough, basically, to be a real normal character. They have many different skills, knowledge skills, physical skills, speech skills, and they are all based off of stats. So we here, down at the bottom, you'll see this on everyone. You won't always see every little section on all these, but you'll always see the Stir Dex Con int Wizka. That stands for Strength, Dexterity, Constitution, Intelligence, Wisdom, and Charisma. The skills are based off of their ability scores. So knowledge, religion, all the knowledge skills are based off of their intelligence. But strength makes enough sense. Dexterity is kind of how agile you are. Constitution is how well you can, in the game, that's what defines your hit points, basically how much damage you can take until you go down. It also describes your ability to withstand poisons and disease, stuff like that. Intelligence is, I like to think of it as this is what you've acquired. This is acquired knowledge, as opposed to wisdom, which is kind of like your inbuilt ability to understand the world. So, for example, the stereotype of an inattentive professor would have a very high intelligence, but they would forget to tie their shoes every day, and so they'd have a low wisdom. Wisdom is also their ability to be persuaded or not. Like someone with a high wisdom score is not easily manipulated. On the other side, we have charisma, which is kind of your ability to force your will onto other people. So someone with a high charisma score is really good at diplomacy, which is a skill that lets you interact with people and try to win their favor or discuss things and gather information. Or intimidate is another charisma-based skill, which would let you, as the name sounds, pressure people into doing what you want out of fear. Our friend Machiavelli, as you will see, has a pretty decent intimidation score. And then, off to the right here, we have kind of a catch-all section. The idea is this is a short little blurb to help you get to know the character better, or to help better understand how to play them. This feeble old scholar knows a fair bit of lore, but unfortunately his low wisdom score prevents him from realizing his low charisma. He's often unsuccessful in convincing others to his point of view. I've tried to throw in a fair bit of humor into this, as well as give a little bit of my own opinion, so hopefully you'll appreciate my view on some of these things. Here we have Beowulf. He's neutral good. He's a human mythic barbarian. Mythic just means that he's extra powerful, and his numbers are going to be crazy big. Here we see he has a swim skill of plus 50. This reflects his ability to fight Grendel underwater for large amounts of time. A plus 50 in the game is absolutely ludicrous. Same with Climb, which is another physical-based stat. We see his strength is off the charts. To give you a frame of reference, most characters are in the 5 on the low end to 20 on the high end kind of range. So a 40 is unheard of, which makes perfect sense for our legendary hero Beowulf. Here, I've added something that won't show up always, and a little equipment slot. This fragile plus 5 Vorpal longsword counts as a magical artifact, but is destroyed upon use. In the specific version of D&D that I play, there's a lot of little rules, and much like real legal systems, individual words mean very specific things. So fragile is capitalized here because it's not, it's a meaningful descriptor, and there's rules attached to what fragile means specifically. It's not just saying, oh, it's a little flimsy. It's like, no, it very specifically means that it breaks, has this many, it's this hard to break, it's this hard to kind of grab or maneuver with. Here we see Vorpal as well. It's capitalized. Its specific ability is that if you get a critical hit, or with the dice you roll a natural 20, the highest number that you can on the dice, you have a chance to behead the person that you're attacking, which is, I thought, very fitting for his particular myth. This legendary warrior is honorable to a fault, but luckily his unparalleled strength allows his foolhardy endeavors to succeed. He upholds all standards of decency and justice. And here's my favorite little bit. Sometimes writers of these game rules will go back and say, we made a mistake. Sometimes it's as small as we just had a typo, or sometimes it's as big as we need to alter this character's fundamental abilities because it doesn't work with what we are trying to get them to do. So I decided to try and kind of reflect that with the idea it's revision 1.200. If you'll notice, his alignment has switched from neutral good to lawful good. He has also switched from being a barbarian to the more god-focused warrior paladin. Paladins gather their strength from the divine, as opposed to a barbarian, which is more of a wild fighter. His skills, he's gained some knowledge religion, and they've failed to include the fact that his climb ability is very high and whatnot. His swim ability is very high. A mistaken draft of this character forgot to mention that his immense strength came from his faith in God. This revision should be used in all printings going forward. There's a lot of in-jokes, which, now that I'm 12 and a half minutes into explaining them all, I'm beginning to wonder if this was the best idea, but we're going to keep going. Also, I hope you very much appreciate my Photoshop abilities. I worked very hard. Here we have Grendel, chaotic evil. He's a monstrous humanoid. He has a high intimidation stat, but his diplomacy, his ability to get people to like him, is very bad. Similarly, his strength is high, but not quite as high as Beowulf's. Still very, very high for any normal person. I say normal in air quotes. Also note that his intelligence is 3, which means he is just barely able to understand speech, but not really. And then here we have another thing that you'll see going forward, the special ability section. Sinspot. Creatures with this trait have a +8 racial bonus to their strength score and intimidate skill, but a -20 penalty on their diplomacy check. This is reflecting how he isn't able to connect with other people. He's not able to talk with other people. He's not able to be part of a group because his diplomacy is so terrible. Then here we see Grendel's mother, also chaotic evil, this time a mythic monstrous humanoid, so again, extra strong, extra terrible. Same special ability, but now has a new defensive ability. Nasty! This ability is only available to female monstrous humanoids. It provides protection from all sources of damage except magical artifacts. It also causes everything within 30 feet to consider this creature as hostile. Hostile is capitalized here because it's a specific term in the game as well. It refers to the diplomacy system. There's 5 stages of diplomacy, it's a spectrum ranging from hostile at one end to very friendly at the other end, neutral in the middle. If the creature is hostile towards you, you can't diplomatize with them under any circumstances. All attempts to try and sort things out peacefully will fail at that point. Your only chance is to possibly intimidate them into running away. If you don't want to, just outright fight them. Here we have Gawain. He's lawful good. He's a human fighter. He has some knowledge in religion and a decent amount of diplomacy. He's not exceptional, but you know what? He's not bad. We've seen a lot of really huge numbers here before, and really small numbers with St. Jerome. And so this is your first example of someone who's more within the realm of normal. Special ability Forgiven, we'll get to that. And equipment, his green sash. This Fey blessed item allows the wearer to ignore the Vorpal weapon ability, which if you remember, that's the beheading weapon ability. Forgiven. The owner of this ability can improve the attitude of a target with a diplomacy check, even when the target considers the owner as hostile. I should clarify here that all these descriptions, all these character sheets are 100% me. I've pulled inspiration from some places, from the actual written material of the game, but all of these stat sheets and all of these specific descriptions are my own creation. But here we see, I just got finished telling you that hostile, you can't diplomatize with them, but in this game, there's always rules that are exceptions to exceptions. Right, now that we have some more foundations, we can keep on moving pretty fast. We have the Wife of Bath. So here's alignment, chaotic neutral. They are a human bard. Their knowledge is, you can see, I want to bring to attention, bardic knowledge means that they don't have a specific knowledge type. They get their knowledge just from the fact that they've learned so many stories, and they've had so many experiences that's how they gain the knowledge, as opposed to the normal way, which is reading books and studying it from a teacher or something like that. And then we have her other special ability, Bardic Performance. That's a generic bardic, that's a term directly from the game. That's a generic thing that all bards can do. Basically, they get to tell stories or sing songs magically. That's their special ability. So we see in the description, this energetic woman prefers to use her Charm Person spell to solve problems rather than engage in direct combat. But despite this, she's no stranger to conflict. Charm Person does what it says on the tin. You cast a spell on someone, and their attitude, again going back to diplomacy, immediately shifts to very friendly, the maximum towards you as it can, but it wears off after a couple of minutes. And so the idea being here is that she's able to charm all these folks into being their wife, but then eventually it might wear off a little bit for some of them. Here we have someone who didn't specifically show up. I decided to make him my own accord because I thought the idea was very funny. It'll make no sense to anyone but me. Here is a lawful good clergyman. I actually don't know if I want to keep him lawful good. He's definitely lawful though, lawful neutral. This is my own biased opinion. He is a false priest sorcerer. Sorcerers, we'll get into this in just a bit. He has very little knowledge of religion, but quite a high bluff skill. While Jeff is not actually a cleric, he uses his high charisma and minor magic abilities to bluff that he's truly performing divine miracles. In the game, there's specific clerics who are on the divine side, they get their abilities from a deity, and then there's the sorcerer side who get their magic just as an inherent part of who they are. And so this is an actual specific, they call them archetypes in the game. Archetypes of a sorcerer, there's a specific false priest. And so when I was reading in about how some of the clergymen didn't actually read the Bible, my thoughts went directly to this archetype, and so that is me explaining yet another very good joke, but needing to pass this class. Dante, I had a lot of struggles with Dante. Sorry if this is subpar. Lawful neutral again, but this is not so much a dig at him as it has been with Jeff and St. Jerome, as more of explaining that he, at the time at least, let's make him lawful good. He is a human expert. Again, expert is not, it's an NPC class, so not like a bard or a fighter or a barbarian. He's not quite cool enough to get that title. He's just an expert, which means he has good knowledges, or good skills in general. And here we see that he's spent all of his resources on getting his good knowledge religion, knowledge history, knowledge planes. Planes refer to the idea of the different planes of existence, like heaven and hell and purgatory. Those would all, in the world of D&D, classify as different planes. This envisioned scholar was once well on his way to damnation for his failures, or at least he was convinced so. After a vision that was definitely divination magic and not just wish fulfillment, he has changed his ways and tries to relay his discoveries to all he can. Beatrice, lawful good, Aasimar cleric, and Aasimar is someone who has a celestial being somewhere in their bloodline. Their great-great-grandpa was an angel or something like that, so that they have some of that holy essence just within themselves. Here we see return back to the very high numbers, because Beatrice has ascended. She's become extra powerful, extra, you might say, and so all of her numbers are very big. This celestial woman is a semi-high-ranking member of society in heaven. She seeks to guide mortals towards and through the plane of heaven. Virgil, lawful neutral, he's another human expert, but he spent a little bit less of his resources on religion and more on the knowledges of the different planes. He has the special ability, one of the good ones. One of the good ones. At the behest of a ranking celestial outsider, a creature with this ability is capable of taking themselves and one other target through the plane of hell and purgatory for days per level as per plane shift. Thomas More, lawful good. He's a human wizard. This is another reference to the actual game rules. There's the idea of a familiar, basically a creature that kind of embodies this person's connection to magic or their power in general. His familiar is Raphael Hiflode himself in this scenario. Familiars can have archetypes, just like how the sorcerer had the false priest archetype. Familiars have the figment archetype, which means that they're not actually real. But that doesn't mean that they, because of the quirks of the game, can't still have higher ability scores or skills than the actual character themselves. So, though his familiar is technically a figment of his imagination, Thomas usually relies on Raphael for his superior knowledge skills. Machiavelli. Of course, he's lawful evil, but I've decided to characterize him as a devil. So all of his numbers are, again, very, very big, and he's a spell, Alter Self, to make himself seem as a human. These other glibness also makes you extra good at lying. In an insidious attempt, this is just my own fun thing. In an insidious attempt to take over Florence, this devil spent time among the mortals, gaining rank and distributing an infernal book of the damned before he died and descended back to the seventh circle of hell to torture and take notes from the violent conquerors of the past. This is another fun reference to the Divine Comedy, where the seventh circle of hell is where folks like Alexander the Great reside. And here we finish off with Montag, I don't know how to pronounce his name. He is true neutral. He does not choose to pick sides. He chooses just whatever's best for himself at the moment. He's a human wizard, focuses on religion, but more strong focuses on religion, but even more strong focuses on history. I'm using knowledge history here to refer to the Renaissance reintroduction of classical thinkers like Virgil and Aristotle and Socrates and so on. His constitution being 6 is very bad, and a strong breeze might be enough to knock him unconscious or kill him in the game. Montag is unusually susceptible to illness and tries to spend as much of their time studying as they can. He prefers to avoid combat if at all possible, and while having the ability scores more fitting of a cleric, he has chosen to become a wizard, which is a reference to the fact that he doesn't really refer to religious texts. At least not in his of cannibals. And that's it. Thank you very much for coming to my TED Talk. For reference, it's 34 minutes in right now, and I'm going to try and get this thing at least under 15. I can't justify spending more time than a minute on each one of these guys. Now I gotta edit this shit together.